Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another 10 pens currently inked for this week. So I think let's just go through these briefly one by one. We'll go through them in a little bit more detail and then we'll do a writing sample. So from left to right we have the Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence, the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog, the Visconti Homo Sapiens Kappa Mundi, the Visconti Homo Sapiens Jade, the Visconti Daedalus, the Visconti Camelot, the Visconti Jacques de Molay, the Atelier Lusso Andromeda in the Tectonic Seas, the Atelier Lusso Andromeda in the King Cobra, and then last but not least the Armando Simone Club Bologna Extra Africa. So let's look at these pens in a little bit more detail. This is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence. Now, this is a pen that I have added to my collection somewhat recently in 2020, and I did say that I probably wouldn't be adding this to my collection, and mostly the reason behind it was because the body is taken up mostly from a purple colour, and that you couldn't see ink, and then when you do have these sort of swirl ribbons in there, then it becomes kind of muted. It's sort of more opaque than the London Fog that I have, but I am a sucker for purple pens, and I decided that as these were becoming more and more difficult to get hold of at distributors, they're still available at retailers, but I thought I would pick this one up, and I got the chance to review it and I purchased it. So this is the Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence, and you'll see here that this has a 23 cat palladium medium nib there, but this I find I really like the Homo Sapiens. I love the size and the weight of these, so, and I love purple inks, so I decided to almost swallow my pride a little bit and say, you know what, I'm gonna pick this one up. And obviously opinions change over time, and my opinion did change on this one. So and it has changed on a few pens that I've said I would never pick up, and then I have picked up. So this is a really nice pen, so I have that inked up this week. I also have my workhorse writer, which is the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog, and I have had this inked up a lot this year, and I just love writing with it. So this is again another ribbon swirl, but it's less opaque, so that you actually see the whole of the body, although it is muted with the ink in there, those ribbons. You also have this blue-grey cap, and it is a Homo Sapiens that has a hook safe lock. What do I like about these pens so much? Well, simply I like the size, the weight, I like the hook safe lock, I like that they are a demonstrator so I can see some of the ink that's remaining, and I like the large capacity of 2.5 milliliters of ink. I also like that these have a 23 cat palladium nib on them. This one is a fine nib, and I do like the fine nibs a lot, so for me this really ticks all of the boxes for me. The next pen is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Kappa Mundi, and again another Homo Sapiens. I just love how these write. I love the balance and the weight in my hand. Now this one is a little bit more opaque, so that it's a demonstrator. You can see the ink sloshing around. Maybe you can see that air bubble in there just sloshing around. But for me, it is a nice pen. I can see how much ink that I have left, and that if I'm going to run out of ink soon, I can see that. This has a gold-plated two-tone nib there, and this is a medium 23 cat palladium nib. But again, I just love these pens, and I can post the caps if I want to. I never do. But for me, I just like how these write, and I like also that you can actually quickly cap and uncap very quickly. So for me, that is a winner in a pen, and it's just a set of pens, of the range of pens that I like to gravitate writing with a lot. And then we have the Visconti Homo Sapiens Jade, and again another semi-opaque or semi-transparent or translucent pen. You can see here the air bubble probably moving around slightly. This is very full. This is the Jade, so it comes with a Jade gemstone there. But for me, again, this has a 23 cat palladium nib and it's a medium nib, and I just like the way that these feel in my hand. If I could go for the ideal pen, an ideal weight out of all the pens in my collection, and that's around about 170 plus pens, these are what I would say are the ideal size and ideal weight. Now, my view does change sometimes, week in, week out, month in, month out, but whenever I come back to these pens, it's almost like that wow factor of these are just right for me. So that's why I tend to have, on some weeks, a lot of Visconti Homo Sapiens inked up, because I do love how they write. The next pen is the Visconti Daedalus, and I do love this pen a lot. This is a really beautiful pen. It's a blue resin which is impregnated with actual real silver dust, and the overlay, the filigree overlay here, is made of silver, and then it's hand painted with that blue minotaur head there. But this is a really nice pen, and I do love it. I really do love it, and this isn't a cheap pen, it is a more expensive pen. However, I did get it for a good price, and I am just really glad that I was able to pick this one up. So this comes with a 23 cat palladium medium nib on there, and I do like the medium nibs. It also has a double reservoir, it's a power vac filler, and it just ticks all the boxes again for me. Very large ink capacity. So when I'm writing, I tend to write a lot, and I will write anything in my journal, I'll write meeting notes, I'll write letters. So I typically will ink up 5 or 6 pens normally at a time, and I will write with those, then I'll ink up another 5 or 6, and normally within the course of a week there will be around about 10 pens inked up. And sometimes I'll rotate those pens to the next week, and other times I'll swap them out for other pens. The next pen here is the lovely Visconti Camelot, and this is a chainmail effect going on here, and they are real links going in on that pen. It's just an amazing look, along with a herringbone sort of look to that chainmail there. And you also have the Camelot sword as well. It's just really, really beautiful. And this one has an 18 karat gold medium nib there. But this is a really, really nice pen, and it's very bouncy. It's a very wet writer for me, and I just like how it writes. So I tend to gravitate more towards the nibs that are soft, smooth, with a little bit of bounce to them, because that just gives me a lot more of a luxurious writing experience. And I know not everybody's the same. Sometimes I do actually like having a very rigid steel nib as well. So it really just depends on, I guess, my writing mood at the time of writing, and sometimes really what type of colour that I want to write with, because a lot of the time I match ink colours to pens. And we have this one, and this is the Visconti. It's a last Templar edition, and it's the Jacques de Molay, who was the last Templar. And this is really a stunning pen, and so glad that I was able to pick this pen up. And I love writing with it. It's an amazing pen, and if you don't like all the metal work on it, you may not like this, but this is the chalice or helmet, the filling knob. It's a power vac filler pen, and this really is just a magnificent pen. It's all of the level of detail here. You have the chainmail. It's just amazing. So I also like the white effect going on. It's like an ivory effect. I also like the 23 cat palladium medium nib there. It does have a large step down, but that doesn't bother me, and the pen isn't overly heavy compared to what you would think it would be. So for me, I'm glad that I was able to pick this up when I did, and I like writing with it. It's a pen that I do write with a lot. And then the next pen is the Atelier Lusso Andromeda, and this is the Tectonic Seas. Now, this is really more of a material that I handpicked because I wanted a topographical look of the sea and the earth, and this really sort of spoke out to me, and I'm glad that I did because this pen turned out really well. Eric did a good job on this pen. And I also mentioned sort of a couple of pens ago that I sometimes will gravitate to some rigid steel nibs, and this does have a rigid steel nib. It has a number 6 size Yovo nib, and it's a broad nib, but for me, I like it, and I find that this can be a very solid workhorse writing pen. And I will go sometimes between the bouncy nibs of some of the Viscontis I have, and also very fire hose nibs, to one of these, which is wet but not fire hose, and is very rigid in terms of the give when you write on with the nib. And then I have this one, and this one was handpicked material as well. This is the King Cobra from Eric at Atelier Luso. I handpicked this material as well, and this is a stunning material. I just love this gold and the silver, and I just absolutely love it. It's a really, really nice sort of colour pen. I have wanted to fill it with some gold and silver ink. I've not honestly found any gold or silver ink that I would like to put in here. I could put some shimmer ink in, actually. That probably would work out quite nicely, although I have actually avoided that up until now. But maybe that's something that I will put in there in maybe weeks or months to come. But at the moment, I have got a number 6 size Yovo broad nib in there, and I actually have that inked up with a sheening ink as well. And then last but not least, we have the Armando Simone Club Bologna Extra Africa. And this is a really nice pen. I do like my ASC Bologna Extras. You can see here this material really is quite stunning. It's quite dark in areas as well, but it really is a nice pen. And I like the size. I like the added weight to these pens. And I absolutely love the number 8 size Magic Flex nibs on these. They are a medium nib. They tend to write very fire hose wet, more like a broad nib. But I find that these are really well balanced. They hold a large ink capacity, and they really do, for me, write very, very well. So I also have that pen inked up this week. So that's my currently inked pens for this week. I think let's go and do a writing sample. So the first pen is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence. So I think we'll do an ink swatch here. Now this is a medium nib, and it does put down, I'd say, a little bit broader than a medium nib, which is typical of most Visconti nibs. So this is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence, and it is a medium 23 cat palladium nib. And then the ink in here is KWZ Gummy Berry, which for me is a nice purple ink. The next pen is the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog. So we'll do an ink swatch here. Now this is a fine nib. It is a 23 cat palladium nib, and it does have a little bit of bounce to it, but it is a fine nib, so I won't normally push it. So this is the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog, and it is a fine 23 cat palladium nib, and then the ink in here is Waterman inspired blue, which for me is a very good substitute for Konpeki. It's fairly similar, so if you want a cheaper Konpeki, Waterman inspired blue is an ink that is like that. You could also go for Pelikan Edelstein Topaz, which probably would be more expensive than the Waterman ink, but probably in a lot of cases not as expensive as the Pilot Watcher Zuku inks. The next pen is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Kappa Mundi. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And again, this is a medium nib, so we went from a medium to a fine to a medium. So this is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Kappa Mundi in a medium 23 cat palladium nib, and then the ink in here is Pelikan Edelstein Garnet. Now I've actually thought about inking that up with Star Ruby, but I just don't know, putting a pink ink in a red pen, it just doesn't quite go there for me, but I don't know, maybe I'll try it once and give it a go. But for now, we've got Pelikan Edelstein Garnet in that pen. The next pen is the Visconti Homo Sapiens Jade. So we'll do an ink swatch. Now this is also a medium nib. I'd say this ink is more of a dry writing ink, and also the nib is a little bit more on the drier side. So this is a Visconti Homo Sapiens Jade, and it's a medium 23 cat palladium nib, and then the ink in here is Pelikan Edelstein Jade. So for me, this is a really nice coloured ink. I do find though that Pelikan Edelstein inks tend to be a little bit more on the dry side, although there are exceptions like the Edelstein Garnet. I do not find that dry compared to others. The next pen inked up is the Visconti Daedalus. So we'll do an ink swatch, and this is a medium nib as well, and I do like this ink actually. I'm not normally partial for dark blue inks, but this ink I do like. So this is the Visconti Daedalus, and it is a medium 23 cat palladium nib, and then the ink in here is Visconti Blue, which I think is an underrated ink. I like it. It's a very good blue ink for me. The next pen is the Visconti Camelot. So we'll do another ink swatch. And this is a pen that I love writing with. It's quite wet and bouncy. So this is a Visconti Camelot, and it is a medium 18 cat gold nib, and then the ink in here is Mont Blanc Lavender Purple, which for me is a really nice lavender ink. The next pen is the Visconti Last Templar Jacques de Molay. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And you can see that this is quite a wet writing nib. So this is the Visconti Jacques de Molay, and it's a medium 23 cat palladium nib, and then the ink in here is one of my favourite greys, Diamine Earl Grey, which is a lovely grey ink, and I also actually like the tea as well. The next pen is the Atelier Lusso Andromeda in the Tectonic Seas. So I think let's do an ink swatch. And you can see that this is quite a wet writing nib. So this is the Atelier Lusso Andromeda in the Tectonic Seas, and it is a broad still nib. It's a Yovo nib, and then the ink in here is Akerman, and it's actually their first ink, so it's number 1, and it's Passage Bleu, which is a nice blue ink, and it's a little bit of a darker ink than, say, Compeki, but that could also be a good substitute as well if you were looking maybe not for a cheaper ink, because Akerman inks tend to be a little bit more expensive, but if you wanted to try another ink, then that would be an ink that you could try. The next pen is the Atelier Lusso Andromeda in the King Cobra. So we'll do another ink swatch. And this is a sheening ink, so the dye content on it is actually quite heavy. So this is an Atelier Lusso Andromeda in the King Cobra. Now, I did say that this has a high level of dye content. The more dye that you have in a pen, or in an ink that is in a pen, the more smoother it will, more glide you will find that the nib glides over the paper with. So if you have a sort of feedbacky nib and you don't want the feedback, then try a high sheening ink in there. So this is a broad still nib, so Yovo nib again, and the ink in here is Diamine Skull and Roses, which is a German retailer exclusive, but it's a great ink. The next pen and the last pen is the Armando Simone Club Bologna Extra Africa. So we'll do an ink swatch. And I just love this colour ink. It's an ink that I avoided using when I actually picked it up for a long time. But now I do love the ink a lot. It's surprising how tastes change when you get to use the ink. So this is an ASC Bologna Extra Africa. And this is a medium 18 cat gold nib, but you can just see how wet this is. And the ink in here is D. Atramentis chocolate, and this is an ink on this paper. Because of the wetness of the nib, you will find will start feathering, or it's starting to spread already, but you'll find it will probably start feathering a bit more. So I think let's go through these pens inked up one more time. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Midnight in Florence with a medium 23 carat palladium nib inked up with KWZ Gummy Berry. We have the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog in a fine 23 carat palladium nib inked up with Waterman inspired blue. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Kappa Mundi in a medium 23 carat palladium nib inked up with Pelican Edelstein Garnet. We have a Visconti Homo Sapiens Jade in a medium 23 carat palladium nib inked up with Pelican Edelstein Jade. We have a Visconti Daedalus in a medium 23 carat palladium nib inked up with Visconti Blue. We have a Visconti Camelot in a medium 18 carat gold nib inked up with Mont Blanc Lavender Purple. We have a Visconti Last Templar Jacques de Molay in a medium 23 carat palladium nib inked up with Diamine Earl Grey. We have an Atelier Lusso Andromeda in the Tectonic Seas in a broad steel nib inked up with Akerman #1 Passage Blur. We have an Atelier Lusso Andromeda in the King Cobra with a broad steel nib inked up with Diamine Skull and Roses. And then last but not least, as you can see, it's already feathering, the Armando Simone Club Bologna Extra Africa in a medium 18 carat gold nib inked up with D. Atramentis chocolate. So there you have it. That's my currently inked pens for this week. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.